The 1998 bomb blast at the US Embassy in Nairobi, Kenya may be something that the younger generation may not have had a clue about. But today on the show, we talk about a little bit of what really happened. Hello and welcome to Globe Traktion. My name is Pasil Telewa. Caroline!
Yes.
Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Yes.
It's so good to see you.
Nice meeting you.
It's been a while.
Yes.
Please have a seat.
Thank you.
Welcome back home.
Thank you so much.
How is Pennsylvania?
It's good. It's summer now.
It's summer now.
Yeah.
So you're missing being in that bikini.
Yeah, it's so cold here now. I have to be in jackets and all that.
And that's why I'll give you something after this, because we are experiencing our Kenyan mini winter.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll take care of you. Thank you so much for making time to be on the show today. It's so nice to see you back.
Nice seeing you.
What did you miss about Nairobi? You've been away for so many years.
I miss the freedom in Nairobi. I miss the people. I miss the time you spent with family. I just miss being around here. It's so nice to be back home.
It's so nice to be back home.
Yes.
I called you purposefully today to have our conversation. And I know you understand this sort of conversation. You were among the people who were affected with the 1998 USA Embassy, bomb blast.
Yes.
You recall that. Can you narrate to me, the chronological of events as you saw them from your experience?
Well, it's always a sad story to say because it takes me back to that memorable day, even though it's history, but we cannot forget. It was a Friday that I left home to go to work, and I was 7 months pregnant, and I was working in a cooperative building on 19th floor for Tana River Development Authority. I was a computer programmer, and so I went to work, and if you recall, at that time there was Teachers Service Commission. They were on strike, and they occupied most of the cooperative building. And also the bank, the cooperative bank, was on strike. So we had two major organizations that were on strike. And also the schools had closed. So walking to go to my office, there were so many people on the ground floor. And I went upstairs, I went to my office. I had my colleagues there, and around 10 a.m., our 10 o'clock tea was served, and we were just there talking, and we had commotion from downstairs, and my colleagues went quickly to look from the window. And being 7 months pregnant and my computer being in front of me, I took a little bit of time
to get out of
my seat.
Yeah.
So I got up and I went to look. I actually told them, "You've seen enough, let me look." Immediately, I put my face on the window. That's when the bomb went off. I was thrown back over my desk to the floor with glasses now falling on my belly. And then I was thrown to the floor, which I laid on the belly. I had a deep cut and a glass on my face. On this other side, I had a deep cut. You can see the scars.
Yeah, I can see the scars.
And I had so many cuts on my head and on my face, my hands, my thighs. And I laid there, and the building was shaking. And I knew that was the end of my life. A colleague called Lillian, called me, "Caroline, we are finished." I said, "Let's pray." We said, "Mungu tusaidie," and then everything went quiet. And Lillian's husband was not in Nairobi, so she said, "How about my children?" I said, "Let's pray." The building continued shaking, and we just laid there waiting for our death. Then in a little bit, Lillian said, "I can hear people walking or talking." I told her, if you leave me here, I cannot see, I cannot stand, so kindly pull me up. So Lillian
So
was
while
also,
you're talking about her pulling you up,
yes.
do you have stuff on your body or what?
I already have all the cuts, I'm bleeding.
Yeah.
And when she pulled me up, I took the blouse that I had out and covered here, because I didn't want to pull the glass out because I didn't know how deep it was.
Yeah.
So I covered this eye so I could see. So when she pulled me, she told me that one of our colleagues has told her when he watches movies, you always see people being carried from the top of the building by helicopters. So he has told us to wait there. So we were there not knowing what to do. But Lillian pulled me up, and now she started kicking the wall. Our computer room was partitioned with glass. The ceiling was glass. Everything is still falling. But she managed to pull me. She was actually kicking the walls. So we went to the steps. And I held on the stairway rail because there were so many people laid on the floor, some already dead, others screaming, saying, help, help. And that day I had screams from different languages. Mama yo, kaindetia, Mungu nisaidie. But I couldn't bend to help anybody. I still blame myself for that up to today. And I still feel those noises and those screams. But now when we were going down, yes, the steps were broke. So I could fly with the rail. I held the rail because I remembered my father, who is passed away, told us, if you're in a vehicle that is rolling, hold on to the metal that is next to you and hold on to that farm. So actually yesterday, for the first time, I took my son back to the building, and I looked at the rail that I went down with, and my son was very shocked. So I would skip like 2 or 3 steps, and when I land, I will land on somebody either dead or somebody that is screaming. But if you bend, you become the next victim because people are now coming down.
So tell me, here you are, everything has happened, and you're 7 months pregnant.
Yes.
Yeah. What was going on in your mind? Did you worry about your child? And as you exit the building, where are you going to?
I had forgotten that I was pregnant because death filled my mind. So I forgot about the child, and I was just trying to escape for my life. When we got to around the 9th floor, that's when things became tough. Smoke started coming up. People started shouting, fire, fire. So that moment I said, God, if it's my time, let me go. So people started running to throw themselves through the windows. I still held on to that rail and went down. As we went down, that was so tough, but I managed to get to the ground floor. When I got there, it was filled with water, and I believe that's water from the pipes that had busted. And so when I was walking through that water, I felt like I was being baptized, and I got a lot of energy. And
at this moment, how is the scene like?
The scene is like you're seeing people, and I was barely seeing because, like I said, I was just covered. So people were running in all directions. So as I walked through that water, I felt like I was being baptized. And the issue of death came out of my mind. And I got a lot of strength. Then I ran to the Haile Selassie Avenue. There were so many cops. There were so many people laid on the ground. There are others running everywhere. There's smoke, there's dust, it was terrible. It was terrible.
I'm happy to see you alive, very healthy, Caroline, and you've been doing amazing stuff. However, before we get there, tell me about this 7-month pregnancy that you're carrying. What did it turn out to be, and how did it proceed?
We managed to get to Nairobi Hospital. When I got to the Nairobi Hospital, the gates were closed. And
so was that immediately after the event and then you're being rescued with an ambulance or what?
Oh no, from when I went to the Haile Selassie,
Yes.
there were matarus being turned around by the police. And my colleagues ran to one mataru and also ran into that mataru. When I got inside, because I had now remembered that I'm pregnant, I asked, where is my baby? So one of my colleagues held my hand and said, you sit down, let's go for. I told him, do not touch me. If my baby dies, you will give me another baby. So they were all so concerned, but we started, now the matatu started going up. When we got to, was it called Free Market? When we were going up to Kenyatta, like we're going to Kenyatta Hospital, the matatu broke there. I got out so fast and went to the vehicle that was following us. I went inside, I opened and went inside. And the driver told me, I cannot help you. I was like, why? He said, my wife works at the embassy and I don't know where she is.
So I need to find her.
I'm going to look for her.
Yeah.
Then I said, wherever you're going to look for her, I have a baby. If that baby does not make it, you will give me another baby. He said, ma'am, sit down. So I sat there. And all my colleagues came to the back, those could fit. So he started driving towards Nairobi Hospital. When we got to almost to the hospital, there was a lot of traffic. I said, I cannot stay here. I got off. I started running. These colleagues could not get to me. In fact, one of the ladies that was following me, that we were going together, she died after 2 weeks.
Sorry. So right now you're at the hospital?
I got to the hospital. Mm-hmm. When I went there, there was the casualty. There were so many people there. They couldn't even give us help. So I started helping and started working with them. So one nurse saw I was still bleeding, because when I got there, people were like on their last kick. I remember one was called James. James, they were tapping him. James, I even tapped him, wake up, and he was bleeding. James died at my watch. Another one died completely there, and another one, the eyes, the face is already like slashed. The arms, there was so bad scenarios that I couldn't even feel like I was a victim. But this nurse took me and started helping me. She put an IV on me and she said, ma'am, relax. You have to get help. So when she put me on the IV, she took me to a bed that was on the hallway, because all the wards were filled with people. When she put there and left, I looked at, because we were now sharing a bed, I looked at the person that was next to me. I tried to tap him, only to realize he was already dead. I took that IV out and I went and sat on a corner. That time my heart is like going so fast. I sat on that corner for a little bit, then they came and found me there. They're like, ma'am, why did you get out? I said, that person.
You are literally sharing a bed with a dead person?
Yes.
Yeah.
I said, that person is already dead. I can't stay there. So she took me now to a ward and they found a bed. When I sat there, they started stitching me without gloves, without anesthesia. That was the most painful thing that I've ever experienced in my life. That time, they haven't even concentrated on my baby. They are now concentrating on the glasses on my face. Yeah. In fact, all my hair had to be cut because there were so many cuts and they wanted to see what's inside. So later on, they took me to the theater to find there were so many glasses on my belly. And they started taking them out. Unfortunately, some were stitched inside. And after a day, that's when they realized there's some glasses there. They could not even get the heartbeat of my baby. So they were saying that baby will not make it. They could not even let me watch news or do anything. But I was sneaking in some newspapers and read. That's how I learned it was a bomb blast. So my brother, my family was now looking for me. They were told, because Nairobi Hospital misspelled my name. So they were told I'm not there. The only place they can look for me is at the mortuary. My sisters went to the mortuary. My one brother said, I know my sister is not dead. I know she's somewhere looking and waiting to tell us the story. So my brother sneaked into Nairobi Hospital. That's around 7 p.m. I had not ate anything. My lips were all swollen. I'm stitched and bunched everywhere. So he came in. He went looking through the curtains. When he found me, he started crying. I said, brother, do not cry. I'm alive. There are so many people that are already dead. Let's praise God. But get something for me to eat. So wherever he got a soup, he started now feeding me because I couldn't hold anything. Then he left, and now he went back home with my clothes that I had filled with blood. I had an older son, 4 years old. That morning he told me, Mom, don't go to the city, because we were together at the building on the Thursday. I was taking one of my sisters to go and study at Blaine's Secretarial. And we registered. That day it was me, my son, my two sisters at Cooperative on the Thursday. So we were supposed to go back on the Friday to finalize. The lady that assisted us at Blaine's died. On the Friday, I told them not to come. We'll go another day. So that saved their lives.
That's really saved their life. Tell me about this miracle baby. How are they doing? And how did everything turn out to be?
Lucky, because I was being told he won't make it. Through the history
Is that the reason why you named him Lucky?
Yes. The Hiroshima bombing, some of the mothers gave birth to kids without ears.
With lots of deformities.
Deformities.
Yeah.
So that's the story I was being told. So in my brain, I knew I will have a baby that will be either rotten or without limbs or any kind of deformity. And I was preparing myself psychologically with whatever may happen. So I was on and off in hospital till October 7th, 2 months. We estimated the time I was about to give birth. So that day they told me to go back to the hospital. That time, even the doctors were scared of my case because they could not, it was so hard to say the fate of that baby. I remember one time people were flocked in Nairobi Hospital. Somebody sent a rumor that there's a young mother that the baby has drunk blood because I had a blood clot on the uterus. So on October 7th, I went to Nairobi Hospital. They induced me because they could no longer wait. They induced me and Lucky was born. I called him Lucky because I didn't even think he would survive, he would make it. I just thought it was just a little miracle. I was holding him like this and saying, Lord, have mercy. Then the second name is Baraka. So he's called Lucky Baraka. I felt like he was so lucky to survive, and it's a blessing, Baraka. So we stayed in hospital for a few days and we went home. Then they started now the checkups. They found his right hand could not stretch and his leg was like popping up. So they put him on therapy. Every Monday I took that child to Kenyatta Hospital. And because my hands were so weak, I used to take my sisters, they would carry the baby and we would go. One of my colleagues called Bernard Molandi, when I was giving up on the baby, told me, this child here, take care of him. Is the reason why you came from 19th floor and is the reason why you survived. And this will be a king for you. That changed my mindset and I started thinking, okay, this child will make it. So we continued with therapy, and at Kenyatta National Hospital, I met people like Douglas Sidialo, who is totally blind. I met Diana Mutise that was going through a lot. she had a lot of cuts and her back was messed up, and Diana was going through a rough time. So we were seeing that on the newspapers, there's a lot of money for the victims. Then we started asking, who is getting this money?
Okay, perhaps before we talk about the money, after that incident, how did your life change?
Oh, things went terrible between my family, between my work. I couldn't make any of my life. I couldn't give myself a bath. I had to be helped, and I felt like life had become so difficult, and life had changed for me. I didn't have money to take care of myself like I would when I was working all the time and doing a little things here and there. So it was terrible. And my older son was very much affected. Thinking that he told me not to go to work, that was a big case for him. And when he saw all my clothes with blood, and he saw the building, how it collapsed, and my neighbor said everybody that was in cooperative building is dead. So my son concluded that his mother was dead.
At that time, Caroline, were you married? Did you have a partner?
I was married.
What about your husband?
Actually, he went all the way, walked all the way to 19th floor. What he says is that he pretended that he was a newspaper person because nobody was being allowed to go in.
So he pretended he was a reporter or a journalist or something?
Yes, yes. So he took a pen and went upstairs, all the way up, to look at what was going on. But more of my son, when he was brought to the hospital, he said, that's not my mom. My mom died yesterday. Up to today, he's still affected. I've tried to take him to therapy, to here and there. Like last week when I came, he was like, because he's in the sides of Konza, he said, Mom, when are you visiting me? I said, I'm a little bit busy, but I'll come. He said, is that you speaking or it's the effects of the bomb? And I'm like, why are you saying that? He said, don't you know how much the bomb affected you? Then I was like, he still has those memories. Lucky when we went to the US, we continued with treatment, and God was so faithful. He went through his school, and he completed his high school. He went to college, and last year he graduated.
When did you go to the US, Caroline?
2000.
What got you going? Because I think the last time we had this conversation, you were talking of an exchange program.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about it, how you went and everything.
So when we were meeting at Kenyatta Hospital, I think I mentioned the victims, we started coming together.
Yeah.
So we started an organization that we called Visual 7th August.
To encourage each other.
To encourage each other, that's peer counseling. So through that, we realized there were so many people that had a rough time, and we were not getting medical because they were thinking that we have a lot of money. That's when I was bringing the issue of the money, because the newspapers are saying there's a lot of money for the victims. I remember we had a card, a green card that was written BB, meaning bomb blast. So we'll go to Kenyatta and we'll be pushed out. So Lucky was not counted as a victim or a beneficiary to anything that was going on. So I said, if my son is not a victim, then he was innocent in my belly, and I will call him a silent survivor. I started an organization called Silent Survivors Association. That one comprised of the mothers that were pregnant and were affected, and the children that were born. And we were about 30 mothers. I put them together. 30 mothers.
It's a big number.
Yes. In fact, one of us, who is Catherine Bueres, she turned totally blind, and I felt it. Here she is. I think we were the same age. Here is our first baby. She cannot see that baby. And I've never met Catherine. I'm hoping to meet with her. My heart cries for her so much. Her daughter, Jean Bahati, I speak to her nowadays, we're in communication, but I've never met them. And so that group, we started going now for therapy together. And now they realize these children are more of victims just like any other. So that made a big impact, and the mothers were very happy. On the other side, we had now the visual 7th August. We went to office. I used to go to Pangani to pick Douglas. He was blind. He didn't have anybody to support him. So we, the victims, came together and started supporting each other. We went to Red Cross because they were giving people food, but we didn't know who was getting the food because as the victims are not getting it. We went to Amref that was giving medical. We are not receiving it, so who is getting it? We went to Operation Recovery that was giving counseling. They are giving it, we see it on the newspapers, but the victims we know are not getting it. So that organization was to speak up for the victims. And we called a meeting at Uhuru Park. That meeting had thousands of people. We wanted to know, we suffered. We were not fighting. This was a war that was not ours.
Okay, perhaps it gets quite, detailed. How did you go to the US?
That's the part I'm talking.
Yeah.
When that meeting, we had all the media, international media, and they took our story everywhere. And victims from Oklahoma in US read about us, and they reached out to us. And they called us for an exchange program. So I'm answering your question how I went to the US.
Yes.
So that's how I went to the US. We went for an exchange program.
What is this exchange program? What is the nature?
They were victims of terrorist attack. And we are victims of terrorist attack. So we had a common thing to talk about, how they survived.
Yes.
And theirs was a little bit older. So they had the experience. And they also fought like us, even in the US. To get to the point of getting assistance, they had a rough time. So they felt for us, and they came now to speak to us. No, we went there. We had a whole week. We went to the capital city. We went to many places. We met the mayor. We met the victims. They gave us a lot of hope. And when we came back, they came to meet the other victims.
So then now you set your foot in the US.
Yes.
What did you start doing? How did your life change?
When we came back, I still had the scars on my face. They found a doctor for me. They called me back. I went back. I started treatment. They did not want to do a surgery. They said they'll put needles on my face. They were so painful. But they preferred that instead of now doing the surgery. And so it was to take roughly a whole year. And I said, I have a little baby. He cannot stay. So they organized and brought my family.
Wow. So your family was...
Yes, everybody came.
Okay, flown from Kenya?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And during that time,
Were you
September...
given a home? Were you... Give me all the details.
It's tough. It's a lot of details, but...
Yeah. Just make them as brief as possible.
Yeah, during that time, the September 11th occurred, the bombing, the terrorist attack in September in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania. So that made my trip to come back tough.
Yes.
Because of the way it occurred. It was those flights that demolished the Trade Center. So I could not get to any plane. That also added the weight of them bringing my family because I couldn't go back to Kenya. And that's how now we came, and Lucky started now treatment with the Oklahoma medical treatment. There was a doctor that had come to Kenya, and we had actually met here. So when we went back there, they continued with Lucky. And so we started living there, and they made life easy. As you're asking, the church I was going to gave me a car. That was my first car in America. So they told me, we are coming to visit you. Now after my family came. In fact, when they came, they ushered them in. I saw a huge cake that I had never seen. just to make them feel at home, because they had known what we were going through, and they took us in as a family, and they paid for my rent. They this is a church, not anything to do with the bombing.
Mm-hmm.
They made us settle, and they gave me they came to visit us. So when they were coming, I asked, Pastor, what should I make for you? He said, water. Like, as a Kenyan, you know, we have to cook, make some tea. This pastor is coming. He said, don't cook anything, just water. He came, my pastor, his wife, and the secretary. I looked at, I can't remember who used to bring that program, Omo Pick a Box. It was the real thing that time. So they came in and gave me a key. And I was like, what's that key for? They said, this is a car that we want you to be driving your family. And that's how my life started in America. And as you know, here in Kenya, we drive on the right. In America, it's on the left.
The opposite side.
Yes. And so the wife said, let's go on road test. I had just gotten my license, my American license. And so we went to the road, I tried, and she was like, you need a little practice. And I practiced a little. And I remember one time I was driving and I forgot. And it was in a bridge. And I had like another family that had just come to America. And before I got under the bridge, I saw lights flashing. I turned so fast and went back. Thank God there was policemen. In America, there are policemen everywhere, and they help. They will support you in whatever you want. So I turned real quick, and I went and parked on the side because I was shaking. I was terrified. So he came there. He said, ma'am, I'm so sorry for what happened. How did you get to drive there? Then I started explaining to him, I'm just new to America. This is like my first time driving. And I forgot that I'm supposed to be on the other side of the road, because there are most of the roads. They are like, if you're going straight, it'll be like 3 lanes. So you are all going that way.
The same direction.
Then the other ones will be coming. So instead of turning and go to my direction, I went to the opposite one. So he tried to explain to me, and I understood, and I did a lot of practice. And today I'm a good driver.
You're a good driver.
But I cannot drive in Kenya.
Look at you.
The way they drive here is crazy.
Which state do you stay in America?
Pennsylvania.
Okay, that's not as crazy as New York, because I see we have a lot of Nairobi in America.
Yes, that's in New York. I'm not used to that. Even when I go to New York, I may park somewhere and just take a train. Because it's crazy like here.
You've been very vocal about talking about the victims of 1998 bombings.
Yes.
Yeah. And recently you are at the Senate of Kenya.
Yes.
Tell me, how has it been, fighting for all these, kind of rights and compensation?
Yes. I cry for the victims. Being one of them, I feel how I go and what I've gone through. And every time I look back, I count myself as a lucky one, because I'm in America, I have a job.
Your life is back to
my
normal.
life is almost back to normal, except when I'm now like crazy, like we are doing so much stuff. So every time since I survived, I've always thought about the other victims. And I've always started little things, and I found that I can venture by myself. So I started singing. Before I went, I was still singing. I was a member of the Muungano National Choir. I've sung so many songs talking about how we survived or how I survived, trying to see somebody who can call me and say, this story that you talk about, why is it affecting you? Yes. How can you relate?
Yes.
And then in a way, I got, it was like I lost touch with so many. So I felt like I was by myself. So singing started my journey back and started healing me, because every time I talk about it, it gave me a milestone. When I talk about it to people in America, they just feel like a story.
It sounds like
I'm
a
not,
movie.
yeah, like a movie. And relating with them is not as quite as touching as much as how I relate to the people who are together. Like yesterday was a big day that we met, about 20 of us, and we were all speaking about how everybody survived. So actually in the US, I started Baraka Care Foundation, which I named under Baraka, my son.
Your son, yeah.
Yes, I wanted to make an impact to those silent survivors that I left. But when I started it, I actually invited our victims, and we had many of them come to visit and launch the organization. We had the United Nations, they came. We had the embassy in Washington, D.C., they came. But we did not go far because I still had glasses being taken out. And every time I went to the theater, I felt so bad, and it took me back to 1998. So that slowed a lot of my progress.
Besides singing, what other things have you been able to do that, have been able to, calm down or rather heal your trauma? Because that was such a depressing moment to go through besides the trauma that comes with it.
I used to go to churches and sing and speak that story. And people will be like, why do you keep talking about that story? It's a long time. Why can't you go past that?
Why can't you move on?
Why can't you move on?
So do you feel like people don't understand?
They don't get it. I've tried to move on, but when I see my scars, it still puts me back. And I told one person, if you want me to stop talking about this bombing, put back my blood that I shed and take all these scars that I have. My arms have a lot of scars, and my belly has a lot of scars. My thighs have a lot of scars. So when I see them, it makes me feel like I'm back there.
Yeah.
And when I talk to the other victims, or I look at what they're doing and nobody is caring for them, it also takes me back. And that time I will start a song and I will sing about the bombing. In fact, one that I sang saying Poleni, I was singing to encourage and to inspire victims. And I said, Poleni sana, there's hope. Even if it will be over 1 million years, there's still hope. And I was inspiring them to have that hope of whether we are compensated or we are not, we are surviving. And God is with us.
Let's talk about your son.
My son?
Yeah, Lucky Baraka.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What do you want to know about him?
Generally, your 3 kids, because he's not the only one. You have 3 kids.
Yes.
Yes. Tell me about your kids. And how have you guys been able to settle so far in the United States?
It's been tough. In America, especially if you're a foreigner, it's one of the toughest things to do.
To adapt.
To adapt.
Yeah.
I used to work 2 jobs. And I had the 2 sons worked very close. The oldest is called Mwendo.
Did you ever do this manual, kind of hospitality, taking care of the elderly jobs?
You have to. That's like a foundation that most of us go through, because that's a handy job that is very needy. And it's easily available. And it's available 24/7. In fact, we work in shifts. There's the morning shift, the afternoon shift, and the night shift. And because of the kind of my heart that I developed after the bombing, yes, in fact, my mindset changed so much, and I became a person who wants to help, to support, especially people who are going through medical challenges. And that has put me into the healthcare department. I helped and I went to school, I did a lot of stuff, and I started my own organization. And my songs talk about peace, because I always say, if the whole world can have peace, if you and me are fighting, let's sit down and talk. I believe if the United States of America and the Al-Qaeda sat down and talked about their indifference, we would not be suffering today. The people that are blind in Kenya would not be blind today because of their indifference, they resorted into a war that we became victims. I always say, ndovu wawili walipigana na tukaachwa nyasi ikikauka. Because they fought, they went their own way, they gave us a little help up to 3 years, and everything went quiet. We were left on our own, and we struggled on our own.
What differences did you find in America, you know, after you now settled in and just adjusting to the culture?
America is a very nice place to live, especially when now you adapt and start venturing into what you want to do. With the healthcare, I went into healthcare because of the help we got after we survived. I always turn that to help these people, because you find somebody who has maybe even high blood pressure, they don't have families to support them. So I feel like I become a family to them, and not more of the job, but more of becoming a family. I do counseling to them. My clients, I talk to them one-on-one, and we become like a family. Like now when I'm away, they're like, when are you coming back? When are you doing this? In fact, if I stay for like 2-3 days without talking to them, they will be like, I won't call it sick, but they'll be lacking something. They're missing something.
Yeah.
So that's how I relate to people. And that's how I've related with the victims here in Kenya. I want them to be more close to me. I want to do much. If I was a billionaire, I would go giving every person a penny, or penny is what we call shillings, mashilingi huku. Nitaenda nikiwapea pesa kama ningekuwa nazo, ya kumwambia we enda shule, we lipa matibabu. Like now, I contribute a lot to pay for medical. And through that, I started an organization with some of the victims, which we are calling Consortium of 7th August 1998 Victims Association. That association has brought us together. We have so many branches in it. We have one that comprises of all the widows and widowers. They are now coming together and speak, and I'm in their chat, and I look at how they talk and how they've now come together. We have another one for Teacher Service Commission. For the first time now they have a chat, they talk. Like one of them passed away, one of the victims passed away last week. They are now contributing and getting together, and as consortium, we'll be visiting the family next week. We want to bond. This is something that was coming to tear and steal, divide us, kill, destroy. Talk about all those things.
So is this software engineer who left Kenya still a software engineer even in the US?
My son?
You.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Did you do a career switch or change or something?
When the bomb occurred and I was blown from the window over my desk to the floor, every comment that were in my mind flew away.
Stop it, Caroline.
Seriously. Today, since that time, actually, I stayed for a long time without getting on a computer. I always felt like they will blast and destroy my face on what was left. So I always tell everybody, all the comments, the programming comments flew. I no longer do any programming.
So right now you're a citizen of the US as well as a Kenyan citizen.
Yes.
How did you get into the US system? And was it through, first of all, a visit visa? And how did you
No. When I went and they brought my family, and the September 11th bombing occurred.
It asylum?
No.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get on that. The Oklahoma City bombing called me. We started helping the September 11th victims. So it was also like a peer counseling to one another. We used to prepare, unlike here, there they take care of their victims. We started reaching out to them, and they took me as their sister. And we started like making gifts to send to the families. And during that time, they realized I was still very fresh. My wounds were very fresh. So they took me to school to do counseling through Billy Graham Prayer Center.
Great.
So before I left Kenya, the Neema Counseling Center that was assisting us through Dr. Ndaboki had taken me to counseling school because I happened to be one of the survivors that was reaching out to the others. And because I was doing the peer counseling, they thought maybe if I get some skills, that would be even much better. I did a lot of counseling. I took a lot of people that were still in their homes, traumatized. I would say to somebody, if I walked from 19th floor and I was 7 months pregnant and I'm here, you can also be out here and be with us. So I brought a lot of them to the picture. They didn't want to come out. They were scared. But I used to talk to them. And so Neema started paying me to start going around. But they took me to school, and I was also taken to the Kenya Institute of Counseling here in Nairobi. So when I was there, and they realized I had that, and the Billy Graham Center was the one in charge of the victims in September 11th, and the mayor for the Oklahoma City, they both took me to counseling school that was called Scope Ministries, a Christian counseling. I went there for 2 years, and that changed my life since I couldn't get back the commands and the issue of the computer programming.
So now you are a counselor.
I'm a counselor, I'm a motivational speaker, and I'm also the CEO, the owner of Peaceful Touch Home Care, which is doing good in US.
In the US.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
I've adopted her, and I just thank God, and that's why I feel so much encouraged to come and motivate my fellow victims.
Thank you so much for your time, Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
I got something for you.
Okay.
Now that you mention of winter.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
How do you like
Oh,
it?
this is beautiful.
I hope it fits.
Woo! This is my, how did you know my size?
Come on, Caroline. How many years have I
These are
known
so
you?
many years.
How many years have I?
You know, my body keeps changing. I put on weight today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm little. So, like today I told my sister, go and adjust my clothes. This is beautiful.
So you can take off that jacket of yours
Yeah.
and rock our hoodie. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Many thanks for watching, and I hope you can watch us again every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Kenyan time on your TV's KTN News. If you have a story you'd like to share with us, please don't hesitate. Give us a call or write to us through globetraktion@standardmedia.co.ke or DM us on our social media platforms at globetraktion or at KTN News KE. You can also follow me on my social media platforms at Pasil Telewa on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok for more or behind the scenes and many other amazing stories. But until then, I hope to catch up with you again soon, same time, same place. Bye-bye for now.